that's an idea. Now that's an idea. Now that's an idea. Now that's an idea.
Kia ora, and welcome to Now That's an Idea. This is the show where we explore good ideas, and I'm your host, Jack Marshall. We're kicking off this season with a bit of a special one because it's voting time here in Tairāwhiti. We've got some candidates who want to get into power, but a lot of them make vague statements like, we're going to keep rates low and I'm going to listen to the people. But what are they actually planning? What do they hope to do? And how would they do it? So this is the show where we're going to dive into their idea and they're going to tell us what they want to do and how they're going to do it. So you can get a better idea of their thinking and if they've actually got some good ideas or they might need to think a bit harder. All right, let's interview some candidates. And we're live recording. I just spoke with Elizabeth Kitty and I think I gave her the impression that it was like live on the internet, but we're just live recording. Mr. Sam the Trap Man, Sam Gibson, Mr. Man About Town, and you're running for the general ward in Tairāwhiti. But before we get on to your idea for Tairāwhiti, how are you? Tell us about yourself. For the listeners who maybe don't know who you are, I know you wear a ridiculous amount of hats, but who are you?
We are a bit of a walking hat stand, absolutely. No, yeah, kia ora koutou. I'm Sam Gibson. I'm sometimes known as Sam the Trap Man. I'm a fella from Gisborne. I'm so much from Gisborne. Both sets of grandparents are from Gibsons. We come from the Viti and the Gibson whānau. One of my grandfathers was an accountant at McCulloch's and the other one was a milkman. And yeah, my Dad Clayton Gibson, he taught at Campion and Boys High for many years, and Mum was a nurse and did cooking classes in Gisborne, and yeah, so I grew up in Gisborne. Love the place. It's always been home for me. I'm a surfer, I'm a bushman, I'm a conservation type person, but for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been supporting our farmers in our region, particularly around cyclone recovery and catchment groups. So yeah, that's a bit of my background, really.
Yeah, and obviously you're a trap man, so you're involved with Bluefield and trapping and in the South Island, working on TV, you're a big magazine guy. Like it's hard to keep up. And you've just been down in Parliament, haven't you?
Yeah, we've just been down in Parliament. We released a documentary called Think Like a Forest, which is on TV New Zealand Plus now. It's a big proposal. It's backed by a big piece of policy proposal to try and get native forests back on our hills where we need them for stabilisation. So that's good. And yeah, I do run I run the 30,000 hectare conservation project up in the Waiweka Gorge as well, which is great. We've got a great team of
30,000 hectares.
30,000 hectares. It's not a small bit of bush for a group of volunteers to run, which is nice. But we've got fuel coming back. We've bred over 136 fuel chicks over the last 5 years, it's the largest population of blue ducks on the entire East Coast now, which is pretty exciting.
Wow. Right, and so how did you decide, you've got I would say you've got a full plate already, but what made you decide, it's time, I've reached a stage in my life and career and how did you decide council was going to be a step for you?
It's a really good question, Jack, and I think it can be described no other way than I was shoulder tapped and told it was my time. And I hadn't really thought about it too much. I didn't think it was going to be this term. I thought, yeah, maybe one day I can contribute and give back to our community that we care about so much. But yeah, I just was shoulder tapped, told it was my time, told a lot of the councillors from the last council were stepping down and we needed people with my skill set to step up and help rebuild our region and build that resilience back into our region. So, yeah, when you get told, you get told.
That'll tap on the show. Well, I mean, and it's what a nice thing to be asked as well, because that's responsibility being, people think you're responsible, obviously. This show's called Now That's an Idea. And so my idea for the show is ideally if we can have like the highest turnout in all of New Zealand for local democracy, because but then I think unfortunately we're actually at the bottom. So a stretch goal could be the top, but the first goal would be taking us off the bottom. So that's my big idea and kind of why I wanted to make this show, for people to understand why people are actually running for council. Because a lot of the times when people put their little bio in, they just say, keep rates down and be a voice of the people. And a friend of mine was like, I don't know. Actually, my brother, I think, was saying, I don't know what these people stand for. Like, I know that they're saying this, but so this is where the idea came from.
What's behind the scenes? What's the why? Hey.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've got to. And so I think it's a good entry level for the public to get a good idea of the councillors or candidates running. You know, what are you going to champion? Because obviously you're just one person, and council has so much power.
I think there's something really interesting about that piece, and you've done a great job over the years covering all of the stories, the diversity of stories in our region, which is awesome, Jack. I guess the really important thing to me though is like, right, so I've got an idea, right, and that's the premise of this show. I've got an idea, but also it's really important for us to remember, us candidates going for council, to remember that actually our job is to represent our communities. So even though I've got an idea, it's actually my job to listen to everybody else's ideas, because otherwise we're just representing our own voice, and that's not what our job is. And so for me, I just want to premise that. I think that, you know, for me, standing for council, it's all about, hey, it's my job to listen. It's my job to listen to our communities. It's my job to listen, to understand, and to repeat back what our communities want from us, because it's a big changeable time for the East Coast. And if we're not listening as council members, we're not doing our jobs properly. So I've got a big idea. That's what we're going to talk about today. But it doesn't mean that you, the listeners, big ideas aren't valid. I'm really keen to hear your ideas, and I'm really keen to hear if you think that I've got the wrong idea as well. Because for us getting in at council, that's really our job. So, yeah, happy to go from there if that's all right, Jack.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's the two sides of governing. Is one is representing who votes you in, and then the other side is leadership, where you have to come up with the ideas. So yeah, having a balance of the two is always going to be a good idea.
It's got to be a good idea.
Yeah. So what's your idea you're going to champion if you get on to council?
Yeah, my idea is this resilience piece, Jack. We, post cyclones, we had hail, and then we had Gabriel, and I was heavily involved in the recovery of that for our farming communities. And my idea really comes off that recloaking Papatūānuku, that Think Like a Forest proposal. And it's really to get bush back into our class 7 and 8 land use types. And I think the key to that is that, hey, our NIWA data for our region is projecting out across 90 years. And what it's saying is we're going to see higher intensity rainfall events and longer, drier droughts. And so to me, that means flooding risk, and it means drought and fire risk. We've got a huge amount of forestry in our region. And we've got a huge amount of monocultural kanuka and manuka as well, which is why the fire risk is a big piece of the worry for me. So my idea is to get targeted forests, native forests, diverse rooting systems in that high risk landscape. We also need poplars, because we know poplars have really good root balls as well, but we've seen the key to it is the moss and the fern species actually slows down and absorbs the water when it rains and slowly releases it back out into our catchments. And so if we can get moss and fern species on the hill in those really high-risk steep landscapes, it will actually absorb the water and slowly release it out over those dry periods. So that's one part of the idea. The other part of the idea is that we need to be able to have a thing called cool. And I don't know if this is too nerdy, but I get real excited about
Give
this.
it to us. Give it to us.
We need to get something called a global consent for wetlands, and what a global consent for wetlands means, and it's happened down in the Hawke's Bay as well, and they've got a really great model for it. A global consent for wetlands means if your wetland or your farm pond is constructed in this particular way, which is outlined in a series of rules, then you can do it without having to pay for a consent or even apply for a consent. And so that will allow us to store water for those drought periods and store water for those fire risks. So for me, I think a global consent to slow down water by using man-made wetlands and by using farm ponds is a great idea. And I also think being able to have that infrastructure in place to be able to mitigate that potential fire risk for our region in our 90-year NIWA projection is going to be pretty key to building that resilience into the landscape.
So do we have that that global consent? Is that like mandated by each council?
It's a decision that each council can make to say, hey, we're going to give landowners the ability to, because right now, if you apply for a consent for something like that, it's hugely expensive and it requires you to get a consultant, and it's very time consuming as well. So each council.
So it's just like making a template that if they follow it, they don't have to follow consent. You're talking about cutting red tape here.
Yeah, cutting red tape, pragmatic solutions, because nobody knows our land better than our farmers, right? Our farmers are out there every day. They understand their properties. It's just about getting the red tape out of the way of our farmers to build resilience into their farming systems. It's not really rocket science. It's just doing a better job at what we do at council, I think.
And I'm sure council would probably like that as well, being able to like focus on like the most important things. Like I'm sure whenever a consent comes through for a wetland pond, they're like, well, this could be done in 2 minutes, or we don't have to look at this.
And I've spoken with a lot of our great staff at council around this idea, and some of them are saying, some people are just putting in, they get a consent for a pond, and then they build a 5-meter dam off it, and that's not good. But they're also saying, hey, it will free up our time if we have some agreed principles around what it will be and have to process these consents. So they can focus more on those forestry consents, which is pretty key piece of the puzzle as well.
Yeah. It sounded like you were going to carry on with this overarching ideas.
There's more pieces to that puzzle. We currently have a natural heritage fund, which is available to our landowners. And the way that works is you can apply to the fund and you get a rates rebate if you're successful. And you say, hey, I'm going to do this action. It might be planting around one of those wetlands or enhancing one of those farm ponds with trees and fencing so that it retains biodiversity elements in that same place as well. So to me, I'm really keen to. We've seen that model work. It's been $100,000, $150,000 over the last couple of years, and it's really oversubscribed with amazing projects from our region. So I'd like to see that increased, and the reason I'd like to see that increased is because every dollar we spend in that fund is a dollar that's delivered for biodiversity, for water quality in region, and it doesn't require council staff to deliver that work. It's work that's wanting to be done and valued work by the community. And as I said, farmers know their landscapes and the impacts they can have better than anyone else. And that's why I see the Natural Heritage Fund being a really efficient way of building resilience into the landscape without having to use or pay additional contractors or staff.
How do you measure that? The kind of biodiversity and the moss growing, because these are all things that, it says it's trying to measure not having a fire and losing $10 million of, trees or something like that. It's one of those things it's you've got to calculate what didn't happen almost sometimes. So what's your idea around measuring these things? So it can be a success.
Putting a dollar value on resilience in nature. It's a really good question, Jack. So you can measure the down the road outcomes on, okay, so what is the risk if we lose our forestry? What is the risk? What's the flooding risk when we blow out roads? We know what our roading bill is costing us at the moment. So there's all of that infrastructural cost to it, but there's also the what we do know about the water retention is it's good for stock in a drought, so it's enhancing our farming systems, our businesses, our economy. We also know that these ferns and moss, they slowly release water, so it's going to increase the productivity of your farms. And also we know that a lot of this work's happening in areas that are less productive for our farming systems and actually cost more to farm than they do to retire. So what we are the other side of the financial equation is actually we're able to enhance our farming businesses by fencing these blocks and retiring them as well. So how do we know it's working? Big question. We thought that the pine trees were working after Bowler. They weren't.
Yeah.
And so, how we know it's working is in that long-term resilience piece around flooding and around fire risk for our region. I think these are really small investments, but they're investments in the right place. And I think that there's a whole nother piece of resilience to do around roading, and that's going to play into our 30-year infrastructure plan, which is up this term at council as well. And I look forward to feeding into that. But I think part of that infrastructure definitely has to look into what resilience we can build into our landscapes.
Yeah, I think the fire risk is just something that's not really talked about much in New Zealand, and especially on Tairāwhiti, at least just from reading the paper and looking on Facebook and stuff like that. When you look at the fires that are happening in Canada and Australia, and you just see, like areas the size of Auckland or the North Island burning. And you've got these monocultures like Manuka and stuff is just full of oil. You just think this is dodgy.
It's scary stuff, and I don't want to be that scaremonger kind of guy, but we've seen what fires look like in Canterbury. We've seen what fires look like in Nelson. They do happen in New Zealand. We also see the large scale fires in Australia and Canada. And you're right, Jack. Like, it's one of those things I'd never wish for our region, and I just want to make sure we weren't really prepared for Gabriel. I don't think we were as a region, and I just want to make sure that we set our region up with as much robustness, as much resilience. We want to be as ready as we can because we know that those risks are coming and they're increasing over the next 90 years.
So basically, your ideas so far are just like basically cutting red tape on sensible things that will work for farms and help with productivity and also protect fire risk, and also increasing some funding towards relatively small amounts compared to like what roading and stuff is getting spent on, to increase biodiversity there. Anything else? Was there? I know you're a man of many ideas.
Oh, I've got many ideas. I think there's another piece to that puzzle as well. I'm working really hard at the central government level to really bring in significant amounts of funding around that idea as well, because what we found with the Earth Sciences report post the cyclones was that pasture, it got really hammered by slips forestry, it stood up just a little bit better, but native forestry, native forest was most resilient. So I'm also working at a central government level to bring in cash to be able to bankroll and really invest heavily in that space. So yes, I think there's things that we can do as local council, but that we also need central government support for that equation. Got all sorts of ideas though, Jack. I think roading's something I'm really keen to address. I don't think that ratepayers should be footing the bill for the cost of what industry is costing us on the roads. We all know what driving up the coast looks like. Driving up the coast is not too bad. But as soon as you turn around and drive back down the coast, those heavy trucks carrying heavy loads are really degrading our roading system and costing our ratepayers a lot of money. So to me, I think that there's another idea sitting there, an idea that sits around industry paying what the real cost is for doing business on the East Coast and what that real cost is our roading. And I think a little tariff at the port for loads of logs is probably not a bad idea if it takes the burden off of our ratepayer.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to talk to any candidate without talking about roads, because it's just insane going for a drive, even just around the city. Like Custom House Street just got revamped with this amazing new road, and there's already potholes. It's just non-stop.
I've been doing a bit of work down here in the South Island recently, and we don't have that issue down here in the South Island as I've been driving around, They just don't have the same amount of forestry, and also their rock that they're using on their roads is harder rock, so their roads last longer down here, and it's fascinating to be driving on roads that don't have potholes. It's definitely an experience I can recommend.
You can go faster. All right. So final part. What's your? We've got a little time set aside for you. What's your closing pitch to the Gisborne voting public? Why should they vote for you, Sam?
If you don't want to, don't. But I guess my closing pitch is I'm a known entity to the East Coast. I think I've been providing for the East Coast for a little while now. I've been supporting both our rural and urban communities. I come from a background that's quite diverse. I grew up at Wainui Beach, which is nice now, but it wasn't particularly affluent when I was growing up. I've spent time working for Leaderbrand packing squash. I've raised a family in the heart of Elgin, and I understand the challenges facing those economic communities. And I've also spent time living 45 minutes up Forestry Road. So I've seen a good tapestry of what Gisborne has to offer. But I think the biggest things for me are, I feel like I'm a proven entity. Over the last couple of years, I've brought in $3 million of investment to support our community to achieve their aspirations. That's sitting outside of council. And I think I'm also one of those people that are prepared to sit down and listen. One of those cup of tea people, one of those people that really crave to understand our communities, what's top of mind for our communities and what their aspirations are. And I am one of those people that want to, if you want me there at the table, I'm happy to be at the table. And I want to make sure that I'm representing our community accurately, and I want to make sure I'm representing the collective needs of our entire community. That's part of the reason I'm standing in the general ward this election.
Kia ora. And so that's the interview, but I've got a rapid fire pop quiz.
Let's do it.
All right. The last pop quiz with Elizabeth wasn't that fast or rapid.
Is that giving me permission to answer it in a long-winded way?
Well, everyone politicians, diplomatic. But so, favorite fish and chip shop?
Oh, I'm not even going to go fish and chips. I'm going to go Hank's down in Balance Street. The brother there does one of the best smash burgers around. So if I'm eating takeaways, I'm going to Hank's.
All right, and whale rider or boy?
Oh, tough one. Whale rider, hands down. It's at Whangarā. That's where my kids whakapapa to. Yeah, whale rider.
And favorite Lord of the Rings character?
Oh, I'm not. So I got raised without a TV, fella. So that's a hard question for me. By memory, is it Aragorn? Who's the guy that's the forester that runs around dark here?
Yeah. Aragorn, Strider.
Yeah.
The king.
One of those Aragorn, those Bushman type fellas. They sound pretty good to me.
And famously, winter in Tairāwhiti is pretty boring. How do you get through winter?
You reckon it's boring?
Well, hey, this is just what people say. I'm speaking for the people. Winter can be tough socially.
Maybe. I guess I go bush a lot. Hey, I go bush. I think winter's a great time in the bush, but I think the other, because you're wet anyway. I think I surf, which I
Surf's
enjoy.
pumping in winter.
It's great in winter. And the other thing we like to do as a family is, when those big storms roll in and it kicks up all the foam on the beaches. I've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we just love to go to the beach and run through that sea foam. I think even if it's a wet day, a stormy day, that's a really fun activity. And I don't think it's just for kids. Like, there's something about running through sea foam that is really great fun.
All right, final question. This is going to decide if you're in the council or not. Power pie, yay or nay?
Is that even have you even got any no's to that question?
Elizabeth with a no.
Is she a vegetarian or something?
She said she doesn't eat shellfish.
I eat shellfish.
That's
I
yay.
think for me, it's a question of like one power pie or two.
I see they're spreading around the coast. It used to be just up in Toko. Now power pie here.
You can't beat them.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being on the show. Number 2.
Appreciate you, Jack.
Now that's an idea.